pledge. I pledge myself to
and to be loyal to my country, to be obedient to the laws of the land, to love my fellow citizens, and to dedicate my energies to my happiness and prosperity.
Can you please be seated? For those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is Leland Saul, and I am the Secretary of the Institute for Action Against Discrimination. Thank you to each one of you for being here with us today. We are very pleased to be able to welcome those of you that have been with us from inception, new members, special guests, and attendees. Today marks the official launching of the Institute for Action Against Discrimination. And we are proud to host you in this wonderful village, paradise, in the community of Belgium, what I consider to be the cradle of the resistance. It is not accidental that we chose to launch the Institute here in Paradise. Paradise signifies an ideal place or a state, and our mission is to fight for a country free of discrimination, a fair and just society. Before we get started, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who generously helped to make this event a reality. We could not have done it without you. The Constitution of Guyana guarantees several rights. Unfortunately, several are under daily assault, most notably protection from discrimination on the grounds of race, political opinion, and affiliation, among others. Because this right is intertwined with others, affected citizens are rightfully and comfortably, affected citizens cannot rightfully and comfortably enjoy others, such as right to participate through cooperative, trade union, etc., equality of persons before the law, and protection from freedom of association. These are just a few. The list is not exhaustive. It is up to note that the de facto presidents comment in relation to terrorism charge against 12 African Guyanese. Reportedly, Jack Dio said the charge was meant to send a message. I am forced to ask, what message? Is Jack Dio the police publicist? Not to worry, it's a confirmation that the ruling cabal does not believe in good governance. It is obvious that the police were directed by the executive, a blatant disregard for the principles of separation of power and rule of law. Even more troubling is the law enforcement officers' willingness to be used as instruments of oppression. They are at the beck and call of the ruling cabal and are readily available to violate the constitutional rights of citizens. Last night, I read that the Dalit who proclaim himself to be a Chatri has asked the police to investigate the utterances of Brother Takuma Ogunsi. We must stand resolutely to support Brother Ogunsi because I believe that the police will persecute him, not prosecute, And I want you to understand that. Even though Guyana is a signatory to the convention, and this is the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, adopted in 1965, it pronounced that all human beings are equal before the law and are entitled to equal protection of the law against any discrimination and against any incitement to discrimination. Um, what we find in Guyana here, from almost every corner of this country, is the alarming echoes of many voices, particularly Africans and non-supporters of the PPP, could be heard crying out against the discriminatory practices of the Ali Jagdeo People's Progressive Party government. Indeed, August 2, 2020 was a watershed moment in Guyana's history. It marks the beginning of the period of infamy dedicated to the destruction and humiliation of those perceived not to be supportive of the ruling cabal. Arguably, the extant public policies are influenced by the cabal's philosophical position on resource allocation and national distribution of wealth, and are not necessarily underpinned by a utilitarian theoretical position. And what I basically am saying, it means that the greatest done for the greatest number of persons whenever you are in public policy, making public policy. This is skewed. This skewed understanding has led to Indians being the favored race and the greater beneficiaries of developmental benefit. A cursory glance at the allocation of benefits and resources over the past 2 years, 6 months, will clearly show that Indians are the main beneficiary in every sector, including mining, agriculture, public contract, formation of businesses, recipients of financial assistance, and many other areas. Conversely, the ruling cabal's philosophical approach towards Africans is crass and hostile, and seemingly tailored to allocate minimum developmental benefits and resources. They have even tampered with the effective and efficient functioning of the public sector in favor of their kith and kin, and then they have the temerity to feign astonishment and disgust at the concomitant result. In the public service, we believe that employment should be based on meritocracy and not nepotism or political affiliation. And if you do evaluation of what is going on in the public service, you'll see what I'm speaking about. The time has come for those who are discriminated against to courageously fight back. The main effort of this battle must be led by us who are residing in Ghana. Every act of discrimination must be met with overwhelming force. We must wage the battle in every street, in every public open space, in every village, in every community and region. We must fervently support those who are persecuted by the wicked and evil cabal. Should we fail to do otherwise, we will soon live in a full-fledged apartheid state. The Institute for Action Against Development began as a call for action in response to state-sanctioned discrimination and the emerging apartheid state. We intend to connect with people all over the world who share a desire for equal rights and justice. Our passion is driven by the discriminatory acts being experienced by African Guyanese and non-supporters of the People Progressive Party government. Enraged by the attack on IPADG, that is the International Decade for People of African Descent, Guyana Assembly in August 2022. The skewed allocation of development benefit, the wicked attack on Africans and their institution, the deliberate attempt to minimize the employment of African in the public service, the politicization of the discipline service, and the blatant regard for local government, among other issues, the Institute penned a letter to the US Vice President and the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, and that was during last year, September. Since then, in collaboration with Mr. Rickford Berg from the Caribbean Ghana Institute of Democracy, we have sent letters to international financial institutions and several governments around the world. Our secretary, and that is yours truly, I was the subject of the most vicious attack by the Prime Minister and a minister within the office of the Prime Minister and other operative of the ruling cabal. Nevertheless, we are committed to serving you, the people, and we will not be deterred by those attacks. The Institute commitment to the liberation of Africans means that we are dedicated to continuing the work of our ancestors in fighting for the liberation of the oppressed. We acknowledge, respect, and celebrate our differences and commonalities, and will fight vigorously for freedom and justice of African and all other people who are discriminated against in this country. The cornerstone of our operation is the embodiment and practice of peace in our engagement against all forms of discrimination. Notwithstanding, we must understand that there is a price for freedom, a price that we must be prepared to pay if necessary. We cannot breathe, but let's take comfort in the word of Martin Luther King Jr. We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. With those words, I'm not the main speaker. And so I would like to invite a presenter to this podium. We are all familiar with him. He's a son of the soil. He's a West Berbice man. He's from number 28. He's from Kingley. He's from Litchfield. He's from Belgium. And I think in every single village in West Berbice, he has relatives. He is a consummate patriot, a defender of the working class. Ladies and gentlemen, to the podium, Mr. Lincoln Lewis.
Brothers, Mr. Chairman, brothers, sisters, this microphone is set for you, not for me. Are you hearing me now? Let me tell you that I feel comfortable regardless of where I am, what may have brought me here, and what I want to say. A little while ago, I had to talk to the two cops who were sent here to advise them that this is a private function and we need to be private. We need to enjoy every moment of what we do. Brothers and sisters, special invitees, welcome to the official launch of the Institute for Action Against Discrimination. It is a new organization of like-minded persons who are deeply concerned about the state of Guyana and our people. And who bring to this forum a wealth of knowledge and understanding and goodwill for every Guyanese. A group of diverse people who recognize that the individual good is best protected and secured when the good of the collective is reassured and upheld by accountable institutions. Good of the collective, good and good institution of the state. An accountable judiciary. We have a lawyer here, you know. We are asking him to ask the judiciary to be accountable. An accountable parliament. We have parliamentarians here. A constitution that is held sacrosanct. International laws, conventions, and human rights, they must be respected. This is a rights organization. Brothers and sisters, they drag their feet on sustainable development in certain communities, on laws, on the enforcement of those laws, on ensuring equitable land distribution, on ensuring our youths are provided diverse opportunity for personal growth and maximizing their potential. They deny our cities, our regions, and local democratic organs discriminating in the distribution of resources, creating impoverished communities and substandard public health system and conditions. Even national disasters and distribution of state resources are at times discriminated against. The fact, and don't disturb me even. Are you too heckling me? The fact that there was a need to establish an institute for action against discrimination speaks volume as to the state of governance, ethnic relations, and social justice in Guyana. It screams to you, the people, that all is not well in our beautiful country. It says to you, brothers and sisters, that we, the people who feel it, knows it. We are aware of the existence of discrimination, marginalization, and denial. It says that enough is enough. We have had enough of discrimination. Most importantly, my Guyanese brothers and sisters, and listen to me carefully, it says that we must act and act now. And by acting, this doesn't mean reckless maneuvers and scatter responses to the forces of discrimination in Guyana. It means bringing together the oppressed and marginalized people, whoever they are, wherever they are, whatever their issues of discrimination, to be consolidated into our strength, our resources, our various skills and ideas. We need to mobilize and empower our people. We need to do that so that we too can have equal rights and justice, equitable distribution of the regime of the equitable distribution of the nation's wealth and harmony in Guyana. We need to have those things. We have to work towards that. We can't walk alone. If we walk as an individual, we will find ourselves being picked off one by one. The future must be bright for all, not just for a few at the top, with the rest of us taking the crumbs. That is not a recipe for peace in Guyana. It is not a recipe for growth and development. It is conditions set in place to pillage our wealth and create two Guyana. One for the privileged political class. One for the privileged political class. And I do not mean the masses who support the regime of the day. I mean the unpicked few, that have themselves families and courts up to pillaging what rightfully belongs to all of us and become the new world oligarchs of the Caribbean, where their monies will buy lives, their monies will buy life, but future. Buy future leaders. That's what the money wants. And enough for the generation to come. And they can further corrupt the entire society because they will have enough economic influence to do so. We are seeing it already. The state money is being distributed to friends and family and friends, and to buy votes and what have you. The other Guyana will be the one where the masses are involved. The masses, that's going to be the other Guyana, who will continue to fight and claw at each other without recognizing they are in the same boat, sitting at different points, feeling the impact of rough waves differently, but still facing the risk of a capsizing boat. The formation of IAAD also says to this government, the Ali Jagdio or Jagdio Ali regime, you have failed the people at the very basis of understanding of what it is to be a democratic society. To have a government recognizing and acting in accordance with fundamental democratic principles of people, by the people, and for the people. They have failed. They have failed. For with their willful act of spitefulness, of economic suppression, of dividing us with lies and hate, for they know, and believe me, when I say they know, that a united Guyana, a united people, a united trade union is an unstoppable force against threats to anyone. So, my brothers and sisters, I say to you, our struggle for the collective good, for better livelihood, better conditions of work, for better communities, for improved race relations, better opportunities for our children, for security, be it social, economic, or political, for peace and harmony, has got to be on issue of equity, of rights, the rule of law, good governance, guided by international conventions and practices. It cannot be about race and ethnicity when we face the same weather conditions, breathe the same air, and depend on each other for various means of sustenance. The creation of IAD indicates the Ali Jaglio leadership of management in government office is not what is expected of us. They are aware of our rightful dissatisfaction. They are palpably aware of what they are doing, of the impact of their action on the masses, but they refuse, in fact, to hear the cries of the people. They refuse to stop, to engage, to change course, to include all our people without anyone having to lower their dignity, to be reduced to begging, as we saw one of our citizens doing in front of State House, and the impact their discrimination has on a large section of Guyanese in particular. They refuse, brothers and sisters. They refuse to take heed. And therefore, fellow Guyanese, we must affirm our concerns at every level, in every instance, for all who suffer discrimination, institutionalized or of another form, in this dear land of Guyana. No country in the world has been freed from oppression without the oppressed themselves being directly involved and in the forefront. IAAD stands ready to lead the struggle of all Guyanese against discrimination. Today, we welcome each of you today to be part of the struggle of IAA to bring sensible governance for progress to Guyana, for all Guyanese. Solidarity. Welcome, welcome. And may we hold hands and crusade to every nook and every cranny in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Lincoln. I think that was indeed inspiring. It is important, if we want to change what is going on, we must mobilize, we have to be united, and it's more than one group of people, but across society we need to mobilize. And we must demand that government conform to the principles of good governance in terms of accountability, transparency, rule of law. Indeed, we have a problem when it comes to rule of law. The application of the law, as we see on the East Coast, where those persons were charged for terrorism, It's outrageous. And so I question myself, why? Why? That is not terrorism. It's an abuse of power. Additionally, we must demand that the rights of citizens be observed by those who control the seat of government. Um, the whole issue of equity or equitable distribution of resources, we must demand that. The distribution of resources is skilled. And we cannot build a society where one set of people are benefiting and others are not. But the sad thing about it, even though sometimes when people get angry, they want to beat up upon supporters of the ruling party. The reality is that the average supporter of the ruling party, he or she does not benefit from anything of consequence, and we have to understand that. There are few people in this country who are enriching themselves at the expense of the masses. And that is what we have to fight against, and we have to do it collectively. Recently in the city of Georgetown, the capital city, I don't know if you are familiar with the mayor. He's the next speaker that will come on stage. I see him as a defender of poor people. He's a religious leader. He's very passionate about the welfare of the poor. And I will not spend much time in introducing the mayor because we are all familiar with him. And I will now invite his worship, the mayor of Churchtown, and the Tobaraj Narayan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Colleagues all, pleasant good evening to you. I'm happy to be here this evening, and I want to start off on this note. My founding leader, Forbes Burnham, stated in one of his release many years ago, one of his speech, to us, Africans are important. To us, the Indians are important. To us, the Chinese are important. To us, the Amerindians are important. To us, the Europeans are important. To us, the Portuguese are important. My dear comrades and friends, that was a words echo from my founding leader, our founding leader, mouth back then, and I believe we should uphold those words with love and pride. I stand here fearless, and there are many, many people that reach out to me as the mayor of Georgetown. I choose not to remain silent on matters that important to human rights. Human rights in our country has been brought many times to injustice, and we cannot allow such. And you know what took place with me in the city? Not only one occasion, but many, many occasions. And the thought that I will just sit back and relax and give up. But I want to let you know it only gives me the energy to fight for you, my people. It only gives me the energy when they arrest me, when they placed me before the court, where they tried to tarnish my reputation all wrong, that give me energy to fight for a true democracy, a true nation, and for my people. This thing is not only, and that's why I love the name Institute for Action Against Discrimination. This is not only attacking Afro-Guyanese. This here is also, we have a regime that attack even the Indians, the Amerindians, the Portuguese, and I can name it. Why? Because you're a supporter maybe to a different political party, the coalition, the PNC, the AFC. And as long as you're a supporter of those parties, you're being attacked in different ways, on different occasions. When we speak on democracy, we must able to identify what is democracy. But we have a government that circumvented democracy in all angle and all form. And why I said that is that the government, you have a local system where the laws are very clear. And many of you may not know that what circumventing democracy means. That you go to parliament and you create different acts and establish different constitutional body. And that body is selected by the president and parliament, which they will have majority on that commission or that constitutional body, which will act now in their interests in terms of circumventing the local democracy. So you have a council, an elected council, which you cannot fire, hire, or discipline. Who does that? The local government commission. Who has majority on that commission? The PPP. So if the council made or make a decision, and if the town clerk choose not to carry out that decision, and that town clerk is so directed by the commission what to do. And that is what we face in the city and other municipalities and NDCs. That is called circumventing democracy. You establish now a one-window plan where you're taking away the power of the local authorities and establish it in a constitutional body again, which will approve plans for building. Then your next few months, you will table a next bill in parliament to deal with solid waste, which ought to be dealt with by the municipalities and NDC. You are going to circumvent that too, to have a next body established to deal with solid waste. So anything the municipality ought to do will have to have engagement with that constitutional body or that authority. And this is what circumventing democracy means. And that is what this government is doing. It's taking control on every part on democracy. But you the people need to be educated about these things. And if you don't be educated about it, you will be in the dark. And my young people out there, you need to read the laws, the constitution of our country, and see exactly what is your right. Discrimination is at every level of this
country at this point of time. I'm not surprised I live here and get arrested in the city. I'm not surprised of that. You saw the police came. When the police came, I thought they came for me because I'm out of the city. Right? So I've been targeted at every corner. And why I say this? Because of my political work that I'm doing. You know what they choose to do recently from January? Instructed the town clerk to cut my gas. Right? So I used to get gas Monday and Friday. So they cut it to 4 gallon on Monday, 3 gallon on Wednesday, and 4 gallon on Friday. So you limit my political work in various constituencies and villages. I leave for the United States recently. The town clerk seized my vehicle, breach all protocols on an elected official, and dismantle the siren and everything which was placed by the then administration in my vehicle. Strip my vehicle. That is discrimination. So they're using a tactics, a strategy. Because I'm an Indian holding the post and the portfolio of mayor, you place an Afro-Guyanese as town clerk so that I will go after the town clerk to show my hands I'm a racist. Vice versa. That is what this government is all about. They're strategizing how to penalize you, to bring you to your knees, to chastise you at every corner and every level. But you know what, my friends and my Guyanese brothers and sisters? I will fight for the Afro-Guyanese. I will fight for the Indians. I will fight for the Amerindians. I will fight for every race, all 6 races of my country. Because my founder leader taught me that each and every one of us are matter. We must have a voice. I listened to His Excellency today on various matters he raised in the media. But who called them out when they were at Pegasus to overthrow a minister vehicle? They forget about these things. I'm not siding with whatever the member of the WP is saying, but vice versa, we must be reminded of our own actions. I look at a statement the Joint Service issued yesterday. They're apolitical, but yet the mayor of Georgetown was disembodied while not on duty. I was not on duty, and I was disembodied as a staff sergeant in the DDF. And you're claiming you're apolitical. All of these things, they should be reminding themselves what they have done. That is a political action. When you want to discipline a member of the Guyana Defense Force, there are protocols to follow. Especially when you're a reserve officer. You cannot just send me a letter and say I'm disembodied from my ranks. That is discrimination. And it continues, my friends. But you know what? I'm a humble man. I'm a servant of the Almighty. And I believe that I have been placed in a seat to represent the people. and I took an oath to do so, and I will do it without any fear. The only person I'm fear of at this moment, it is the Almighty. It is the Almighty. I would not be fear to no political party, any president, any vice president, or any ministers. Because you know what? This battle is a battle for justice, democracy, true democracy, and for every Guyanese to benefit from our resources that we have here. Today I was talking to a who had a financial institute in Canada. Very good individual, and he was a supporter of the PPP. He was a supporter of the PPP. And you all senior position then in Dr. Chedi Jagan government. And he called me to say that what the current administration is doing is totally disrespecting the Guyanese people. The Guyanese people telling me of ExxonMobil and all these high-end oil company in our country. You give us 150, give us cash grant. Yes, I will encourage every one of you to take the cash grant. Don't refuse the money. It's your money. But yet, Dan Allen discriminate. They'll pass Paradise at Belgium and go no more. Well, don't refuse it too. But let us analyze something. Let us analyze something. All these oil companies here, all these big investors are here. Why not the government set up some kind of institution or section where the Guyanese people can be able to get shares and benefit equally as well? And that take me back again to my founder leader vision for our country. Shares. So if you invest 1,000 Guyana dollars, you can able, depends on the profit of the oil and gas industry, you will able to benefit probably triple the amount within 6 months, or depends the calculation. I'm just making reference. Establish something that the Guyanese people can able to have shares in these companies. We have a master who claimed to be a master of economics. And you know who I'm speaking of. But the PPP government want to rewrite history of this country. And we must not allow that. They want to rewrite history of this country. And I can go on and on. When you make mention of Forbes Barnum, we had our own dairy factory here. You know about that? We had our own clothes factory, brick factory, the flour factory in Anna Regina Essequibo, glass factory, the refrigerator, right?
Yes. Orange juice.
Orange juice. And I can go on and on. Who have destroyed it? Go back in history. So when they want to rewrite history, they have to be very careful. Only recently I was reading about NIS. When NIS was established, the PPP had chastised NIS. Today, who it benefit? It benefit all Guyanese. We must be able to speak history and talk history. All of these things are part of discrimination. They want to rewrite history. But it can't rewrite when you have young people like myself in politics and who know the history of our country. And that's why I'm encouraging young people today out there, don't fall for this hearsay. Go and do your research. Go and do your research. The older folks, yes, will know, but they may not remember everything. But the history is there. Go and do your research. Don't fall for hearsay. Don't fall for these hypocrites that want to rewrite history, our history. So, my dear friends, my dear brothers and sisters, we must be mindful what we say, what we do, because you're representing one people, one nation, and one destiny. You're not representing one Guyana. One Guyana is one circle for a certain class of people. Right? Certain class of people. And I define it this way. Finally, I define it that we're enslaved in a modern way by our own. You take it from me. We're enslaved in a modern way by our own Guyanese. So if we don't wake up, we will continue to suck the salt while them will get the sugar to sweeten their tea every morning. And when we suck the salt, our children and grandchildren will have to inherit it. The Lord himself had went through a lot. Jesus Christ. In my religion taught me Lord Rama had went through a lot. Prophet Muhammad went through a lot. But these were great leaders who stood up thick or thin for their people. And the same way, we must join and link our arms in unity and fight for justice and democracy. So I want to say to you tonight, this fight is not my fight. This fight is not Comrade Leon Sal's fight. It's not Comrade Lincoln fight. It is not Comrade Ricky fight or Comrade Rizal Ford fight. This fight is all of us fight, all Guyanese. And if we don't stand firm, if we don't support each other, we will go down one by one. And we cannot allow that to happen. Leadership is matter as well. Strong and firm leadership is very important to lead our people. We must not able to back down. We must face the heat. However the heat or the fire may be, we must face it. We must not back down. I'm ready. I'm ready. I said to them, if they want to jail me, jail me. I'm ready. I have committed no wrong. I have done no wrong, but to represent my constituent, to represent my people. And finally, I want to say that we have to be very careful on split personality of leaders that we have. Split personality. And we can see that in the current regime. Many talks, but less action. I thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. unfortunately, the takeaway, it is quite clear that the regime is using power and authority to discriminate against persons. Also, the mayor would have pointed out the way how they manipulate the legislative arm and create new legislation so they can allocate more power onto themselves. You know, the system of government that we have is the Westminster system of government. And because of that, it's a winner take all, the winner takes all. And if you live in a country like Guyana that is not a mature democracy, and you have certain type of people in power, they really overdo it. And as a result, we have what is going on here. And we need to fight against the system. We have to tear it down. We are all Guyanese and we should all benefit from the resources of this country. You know, the next presenter is from Moco, Arcadia. She also has roots in Region 5. And during the last incident of Moco, you would have seen her on television. And she's coming here to share some words with us. She is Member of Parliament, Mrs. Nima Flu Bess. By the way, our dad is from Mycone, Port Village, Mycone. She is someone from Region 5, and I can proudly say also her roots also is from West Indies. She happened to be one of my relatives, and we basically originated, I think it's number 12, is where some black people were living in number 12. Yes, that is where we're from. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Chair. Good evening to all of you wonderful people. It's good to be in a familiar place. Even as I sat at the table, I looked across at the words of one of the inscription on the board, and it says, "There is no hunger in paradise." And I said, imagine if we can say that as Guyanese. Every one of us can see that. You know, it's an honor for me to take time to be here. I'm not 100% well, but I wanted to be here because it is significant to know that we will have an organization that specifically deals with discrimination against our people. As a sitting member of parliament and working in the system, I can speak of discrimination. But I can tell you that discrimination didn't stop me from doing what I have to do, and that is to represent people. And like the mayor would have said before, he took an oath of office to serve, and that he will do regardless of what this wicked administration is doing to our people. I have in my phone a letter here I want to share with you on a particular matter that I am currently dealing with on the east bank of the Muar that reads, "Dear sir or madam, I am making a complaint against the Nishwar Shivram about a gate that is to be placed across the road at the entrance of my property. Mr. Shivam first came to the community and started cleaning up a few lands around my property. He came one day to my husband and made some remarks about the gate. In the discussion about the gate, he asked if I knew the owners of the property and who owned the land in front of me. My husband responded, no. I then went out and brought my document, the land document, to show that I am the owner where I'm living. He took a photo of it and subsequently returned saying that the individual gave permission for him to construct a gate on the roadway. This is being called discrimination. He has affiliation to the government, and because of his affiliation, a woman living at our property for 61 years, and a man just come up, build gates, block the entire road, and guess what? She got to ask him permission to come out. She got to call the security guard to give her access to pass to go to the shop. She got to get permission from him to pass when she wants, and then he's angry, he locks the gate. Then he cuts a hole in the fence, and I visited the area, so when I speak from what I know for a fact. And when I try to open the gate, they got to push her hand through. She's diabetic, she has her conditions. Imagine collecting scars and all of that to get the gate open. And when you inquire from the relevant authority, the woman went to the NBC on several occasions. She went to local government ministry several times. They visited and nothing has changed. This is just a simple example of what discrimination looks like to many people. I have been discriminated against. When I became a sitting member of parliament, I went to the bank, went through all the process to get a loan. And the day I was to collect the check, I was told the loan wasn't approved anymore. And the strange thing is, I have a prior loan that was way more than the amount I was asking for. I had way less income, but I still didn't qualify. Well, of course, I can't tell you what I had to say to them. But that is a clear example of discrimination. And so to have an institution that will be able to speak on behalf of people that are going through their daily struggles and experiences with an administration that does not care, it is absolutely necessary. I stand witness, like many of you, to see the blatant discrimination that was done towards the people that came through Moko. To this day, I always remember the 5th of January, when I stood and witnessed with many comrades the displacement, the brutal destruction of the livelihoods of 9 families, a total of 32 individuals. 20 children was a part of that. You know, I smiled today. You know why? Because if the mother had sold the cow that the government was insisting that they get rid of all their income and move to a small area where they can't do any farming, they can't do anything. Those people came through that were destroyed, they were economically empowered, they were self-employed. All of their income was based on farming and the sowing and all of that. When I smiled, this youngest victim in that destruction, 2-year-old, the cow that her grandparents gave her gave birth yesterday. And that was the biggest smile I saw on that child's face since January this year. That is a moment that I will forever cherish, because if those people did not use wisdom to try to protect something, they would have had nothing to rejoice with. That child now can smile because she now has a car that she will take care of, because she knows she can get up and put on the lamp to go to check on this calf. When I saw this child cradle this calf and hug this calf, I was so moved. I want the administration to know they better find the same heart that that child has and get it right. As the institution that will deal with discrimination, I know you will be bombarded with quite a lot. I trust that we can all put our hands in whatever way we can to help to the work of the organization, that we will not be an organization that will only write, but we will see action. As I spoke last evening, I told the people in Main Street, it is time for us to act. We need to unite. We need to unite for a common good. We need to protect our board rights, and we need not to sell it with this current administration and what they're doing. I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, and I trust that the organization will be successful in the rest of the
Thank you, Mrs. Blue Bess. But I want to, at this point, I think it's up that I quote Martin Niemöller. He was a German pastor, and he was complicit. with a Nazi and then subsequently recognized that he was doing the wrong thing. Anyhow, this is what he said. He said, first they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. We have to unite against discrimination, and we must speak out. Across this country, I believe that there are persons who are complicit. They don't say anything because they believe that they're not affected. But when you have people who are obsessed about power and authority, they will mash every single person. It's just time, it will take time, and they will get to that. Our next speaker is a member of parliament from the Alliance for Change. Um, like all the previous speakers, he's a defender of the working class. At this point, I would like to invite the Honorable Ricky Ramsuru to the podium.
Thank you much, Mr. Chairman, to my fellow colleagues from Parliament, to our guests, our special invitees, to my Facebook friend. I want to say good evening to you and to all our persons viewing us on the social media because we're streaming live. I want to thank you for this opportunity to be here and to be part of this new, I would say, action group against discrimination, because it comes in all forms, fashion that you were never going to imagine. And as I go down, you will see what I'm talking about. And my brother, forget to mention, I have roots in Barbados too. My grandparents from Bath Settlement. Thank you very much. Guyana has faced significant challenges in achieving economic and political stability. One of the most pressing issues in Guyana today is political victimization through economic marginalization. This is a complex issue that requires a nuanced understanding of the country's history, economy, and political system. The roots of political victimization in Guyana can be traced back to the country's colonial past. For centuries, Guyana was a Dutch and British colony. During this time, the country's economy was structured around the production of sugar, rice, and other agricultural commodities. These industries were controlled by a small group of wealthy landowners who used their economic power to maintain political control. And it's still happening to this day. As I said, colonialism still exists. Since gaining independence in 1966, Guyana struggled to establish a stable political and economic system. Today, we see blatant acts of political victimization and economic marginalization. As my brother Paniji just mentioned, what they're doing to him only about probably, I would say, last week or 2 weeks ago. As a result of these practices, many Guyanese citizens find themselves marginalized from the country's political economic system. Those who oppose the ruling party were often subject to harassment, intimidation, even violence. This includes members of ethnic and religious minorities, as well as those who advocate for democratic reform and human rights. Today, political victimization continues to be a major issue in Guyana. The country's current government, led by President Irfan Ali, has been accused of using state power to suppress opposition and marginalize certain groups. This includes allegations of electoral fraud, censorship of press, and discriminations against ethnic and religious minorities. Perhaps the most egregious example of political victimization in Guyana today is the ongoing controversy surrounding the country's oil industry. In recent years, Guyana has discovered massive oil reserves off its coast, which are expected to generate billions of dollars in revenue. However, there are concerns that the benefit of this wealth will not be distributed equitably. As my brother Leon Saul said, critics of government argued that the ruling party is using control over oil industry to enrich itself, its allies, and its allies. While marginalization, those who oppose it, this include allegation of corruption, corrupt contracts, nepotism, preferential treatments for certain groups. And we all see that and witness it today. The impact of political victimization through economic marginalization in Guyana is significant, and in the Indo community is no exception. You hear what I'm telling you? The Indo community is no exception. Those who are marginalized from the political and economic system are often unable to access basic services like healthcare, education, and employment. They are also more likely to experience poverty, social exclusion, and discrimination. Furthermore, political victimization can have chilling effects on democracy and human rights. When opposition is suppressed and marginalized, it becomes more difficult for citizens to express their opinions and participate in political process. It is not news that the AFC will not participate in the upcoming LGE. When you're suppressing the opposition, this is what happens. You will have less participation in the electoral system. You have no trust, no faith. This can lead to a vicious cycle of repression, where those who are marginalized become more disengaged from the political system and therefore more vulnerable to further victimization. Comrades, political victimization through economic marginalization is a major issue in Guyana today. This problem has its roots in the country's colonial past and has been perpetuated by corrupt and repressive government. This impact of this victimization is significant, leading to poverty, exclusion, and chilling effects on democracy and human rights. It is essential that the government of Guyana takes action to address these issues and ensure that all citizens have access to basic services and are able to participate fully in political processes. This is what they ought to do. And here are some of the guardrails of democracy that are under threat in Guyana today. And you will agree with me. Free and fair election. Free and fair election are critical components of any democratic system. In Guyana, however, there have been repeated allegations of electoral fraud, voter suppression, and other irregularities. We all know what happened to the recount when you those boxes. You all see the results of what was there. Over 29 ballot boxes didn't have the statutory documents. And 49, sorry, thank you very much. It means that you're following what's happening. Thank you very much. In the most recent election in 2020, there were accusations of voter manipulation, delayed ballot box counting, the irregularities in voter tabulations. These allegations have led to a widespread distrust in the electoral system and undermine the legitimacy of the government. Separation of powers. The separation of powers between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of government is essential to a healthy democracy. In Guyana, however, they are concerned that government is consolidated power in the executive branch and that the judiciary is being co-opted to serve the interests of the ruling party. There has been allegation of judicial appointments based on political affiliations and of attempt to undermine the independence of the judiciary. Tell me that is not so. Freedom of press, and these are all the freedom of a free and independent press is essential to a democratic society. In Guyana, however, they are concerned that the government is using power to suppress the press and limit freedom of speech. There have been reports of censorship, intimidation, and harassment of journalists and media outlets that are critical to the government. This undermines the ability of citizens to access accurate information to make informed decisions. Human rights. Human rights are an essential component of democracy, including the rights of free expression, assembly, and association. In Guyana, there are concerns that these rights are being curtailed. There have been reports of police brutality, extrajudicial killings, harassment of civil society, organizations, and activists. This undermines the ability of citizens to exercise their rights and participate fully in a democratic process. Tell me that is not so. Corruption. Corruption is a major threat to democracy as it undermines the rule of law and erodes public trust in government institutions. In Guyana, there have been repeated allegations of corruption at all levels of government, including embezzlement, kickbacks, and bribery. This undermines the ability of government institutions to serve the public interest and leads to the perception that the government is more concerned with serving the interest of the ruling elite. And they want to know why they are so frustrated, why the governance is so poor, because all these things are derails the garden of democracy. And that is what they've been doing. When you compare our terms of governance versus theirs, you can see we are far superior in governance than this current administration. Far superior. Every single aspect we had in control. Imagine if we didn't bring this oil resources here, what would have happened? Just imagine. Every single non-oil sector is in a decline. Every single one of it. The guardrails of democracy in Guyana are under threat from several challenges. Free and fair elections, as I said, separation of powers, freedom of the press, human rights, and corruption are all critical components of a healthy democracy. And all are under threats in Guyana today. It is essential that the government takes action to address these challenges and ensure that democratic institutions are strengthened and protected. This includes addressing allegations of electoral fraud, ensuring independence of the judiciary, protecting freedom of press, promoting human rights, and tackling corruption. Only by doing so, Guyana hopes to build a stable and inclusive democracy that serves the interests of all its citizens. And I'm happy today that we have launched in this very important group so that we can challenge every single thing that I've just mentioned here. Every single one of it. Discrimination in the distribution of government contracts is a significant issue in Guyana today. The allocation of government contracts is an important mechanism for economic development and jobs creation. But when this process is marred by discrimination and favoritism, it can undermine the fair distribution of resources and lead to a marginalization of a certain group. And we know the group, who they are. In Guyana, there are several factors that contribute to discrimination in government contracts distribution. One of the primary factors in political affiliation, the ruling party, the People Progressive Party, has been accused of favoring supporters and members of the party when awarding government contracts. This is not news to us. We all know this. The practice effectively excludes individuals and businesses that are not affiliated with the PPP, regardless of their qualification or ability to perform the work. We have seen recently there are over $4 billion in contracts awarded in Palmaria. 6 contractors. Check the ethnicity of those contractors and tell me what you're seeing. Tell me that is not discrimination. Tell me that is not so. Another factor that contributes to discrimination in government contracts distribution is ethnicity. Guyana has a diverse population with people of Indian, African, indigenous, and mixed heritage. That's a 7 races.
Exactly so.
That is the 7 races.
Exactly so.
Among others, however, these have been allegations that certain ethnic groups are favored when it comes to the allocation of government contracts. This practice can lead to economic marginalization and exacerbate existing ethnic tension in the country. We see what happened in Suriname recently. We see what suppression can be happening. We can see when you have inflation what happens. In addition to political affiliation and ethnicity, there are also allegations of gender discrimination in government contract distribution. Women are underrepresented in many sectors of the country, of the economy, including constructions and infrastructure, where government contracts are often awarded. This underrepresentation can be due to a variety of factors, including social norms that discourage women from entering male domination fields and limited access to financing and other resources. As I said, discrimination can come in all forms. And this one here, I'm telling you about our women, our gender. There should be no exclusion of women contractors. You should be able to have a level playing field where you be entitled to bid for any contract and should not be marginalized. The impact of discrimination in government contracts distribution is significant. It can lead to unequal access to economic opportunities, limit competition, and undermine the development of a diverse and inclusive business sector. It also undermines public trust in government institutions and can fuel corruption as a business may resort to offering bribes or other incentive to secure contract. To address discrimination in government contracts distribution, there needs to be a more transparent and fair process for awarding contracts, as Mr. Lewis mentioned in his brief remarks. This includes establishing clear criteria for contracts eligibility and selection, ensuring that all eligible businesses have equal access to information and opportunities, and promoting competition through open bidding process. These are also to be greater accountability and oversight of the contract distribution process and ensure that they're free from political interference, corruption, and discrimination. We have seen recently that there's a company, I can't remember his name, but I will tell you the contract, that will be building the stadium in Barbados. They were building the Demerara Harbor Bridge. There is no tender process. There is no advertise of these contracts, but the contracts have been awarded to a specific group. I wanted to come specific to the Indo community. And this, my friend Lincoln, Sadriki, he's so happy that I've been part and parcel of this action, and that he gave me up to today to make a decision. But I immediately on his call, I said, Lincoln, put me in, sign me up, because I'm a person who would like to see equal opportunity for all in Guyana, and this is my political commitment to ensure there's a free and transparent system so all can benefit. All. Since the People Progressive Party regained power in Guyana in 2020, there have been concern about the party's commitment to support the poorest and most marginalized communities, particularly those of East Indian descent, despite being large ethnic groups in the country. East Indians have historically faced discrimination and economic marginalization, and there are concerns that they continue to be left behind by the current government. This is a fact. They're not going to come out and speak like me and Panaji will come out and speak, but it's a fact. Go and check it, you will see it. One of the primary concerns is that the PP has not done enough to address the economic disparities that affect many East Indian communities in Guyana. Many East Indians live in rural areas and depending on agriculture for their livelihoods. However, these communities have long been underserved by government policies, and many lack access to basic infrastructure such as road, electricity, and clean water. Today, I'm 45 years of age and I can't get proper water in my community. If you don't filter this water, and even the filter, every week you have to change that filter. The iron content, the rusty you just call it, all the tanks impression, you will see it on it. They are also concerned about corruptions and marginalization within the PPP government, which may be limiting the ability of East Indian communities to benefit from government programs and services. These are allegations that the government is favoring members of the party for those with connections to government officials when awarding contracts or providing funding for development projects. This can create a situation where resources are concentrating in the hands of a few individuals or community, leaving others behind. Another issue is the lack of representation of East Indians in government and other positions of power. Despite being a large ethnic groups in the country, East Indians are underrepresented in political leadership, the judiciary, and other areas of government. This lack of representation can make it difficult for the government to fully understand, address the need and concern of East Indian communities. To address the concern, there needs to be greater focus on inclusive economic development that benefit all communities in Guyana, including East Indian communities. This can include investment in infrastructure and job creation in rural areas, as well as targeted programs to support small businesses and farmers. It is also important to address corruption and nepotism to ensure that government resources are distributed fairly and equitable. There are also a need for greater representation of East Indian in government and other areas of power. This can include efforts to promote diversity, inclusivity, and civil service, the judiciary, and other areas of government. It can also involve outreach efforts to engage with East Indian communities and ensure that their voices are heard and the concerns are addressed. In conclusion, they are concerned that East Indian communities in Guyana are not benefiting from the PPP government. And this is due to a range of factors, including economic disparities, corruption, a lack of representation in government, and other positions of power. Addressing these issues will require concentrated efforts to promote the inclusive economic development, address corruption and nepotism, and promote diversity and inclusivity in government and other areas of power. By working towards a more equitable and inclusive society, Guyana can ensure all citizens, including those from East Indian communities, have access to the resources and opportunities they need to thrive. I want to thank you very much for allowing me for this presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Ramsuru. Point to note, political victimization can retard progress of an individual or a person. In a society where you find that there is political victimization, there is an absence of good governance. Hence, you will see or corruption will be prevalent. And there is no regard for those principles of good governance, separation of power, rule of law, transparency, equitable distribution of resources, an absence of a responsive government, among others. And I think when we look at what is happening in Guyana, that should give us the energy to fight for good governance and to dismantle the system that we have where the practices or the practice of government in terms of discrimination is prevalent. We must fight to dismantle that system. At this point, I will like to welcome Dr. Simpson da Silva. And he's going to do a presentation on sustainable development goal because we believe that if we are to build sustainable communities, we must understand the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal and how they impact on our lives and how we can work together as a country, how we can unite and mobilize and ensure that we lock our arms together to build sustainable communities and peace and love. Dr. Simpson.
Thank you very much, Comrade Saul. Good evening, colleagues, Member of Parliament, Honorable Mayor, and my fellow grassroots comrades from all the various communities in Guyana. Some of you I recognize. It is not easy to come at the podium to speak after so many distinguished and honorable people. I will try my best not to repeat what they have said, because some of them have done a very good job. But what I will try to do is make sure that I leave you with a clear understanding of what is expected of each of us, including myself. I have been following the issue of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Agenda from the inception. As a matter of fact, I was a participant at many of the forums held in Guyana, the Caribbean, Latin America, North America, and around the world. I am happy to hear what the Comrade Mayor had to say. But at the same time, I must let the Comrade Mayor know that I was moved this evening with respect to what he had to say and some other colleagues. And I would appeal to all of us to join in the struggle with the Comrade Mayor to defend his rights. He has rights. He is a human being. We are all human beings. The Afro-Guyanese are human beings. The Indo-Guyanese, the Amerindian Guyanese, the Chinese Guyanese, the European Guyanese, and someone said it mixed. We're all human beings and we have rights. And no one, absolutely no one, has the right to mess with our rights. I am reminded, and he said it in different style of neo-colonization. He said it in styles of, I would like to pause to acknowledge Comrade Ramzatan in the house this evening. That adds to the growing number of parliamentarians who are present. So it makes it easier for us to get true grassroots representation, because that's what the job of the parliamentarian is to represent the rights of all of us, to make sure that no one is left behind. And we go, and I say we in this case because I was once a parliamentarian, you go to the furthest left behind and bring them forward. And that is what needs to be happening right now. I am impressed with the Institute for Action Against Discrimination and its tall orders that the Institute has. And I know the shoulders of some of the directors are white. And I call on everyone to join the Institute, wherever you are, here in Guyana, in the diaspora. The Institute needs your help. And coming back to the question of the rights of Guyanese, the Sustainable Development Goals are 17. and they have 169 targets with 230 indicators. The United Nations in 1948, after the World War, and realized that a lot of people were dying, and you need to stop genocide, decided that the body must come together in a united form to stop the carnage and make sure that people's rights were protected. The brother spoke about enslavement. In the days of slavery, 250 years and beyond, many Africans worked without pay, worked and being dealt with as though they were not human beings. And unfortunately, today, we're seeing snippets of that. We too are human beings. We too have rights. And not because I come and stand up to defend my rights, you think I must be penalized. And I'm saying to us, get up, stand up, fight back for your rights. If you don't do it now, we will go right back into days of slavery. So our challenge is your right to not be poor. That's a right. That's the first goal. We are supposed to enjoy prosperity. Paradise is a place where you get your needs met. You're delighted, you're fulfilled, you're blissful, you're loving, you're caring, you're giving, you're serving, you're treated right, equitably, and all that. Let us use the opportunity of our meeting in paradise. And when we say paradise, we mean every community of this country. Paradise must represent all of us. Let us make sure that whatever we do, we enter to each home, every single home in paradise. And when I say that, I mean every single home in Belladrum, every home in El Dorado, every home in Lancaster, Liverpool, Wim, Carnegie, wherever, every home in Georgetown, Mr. Mayor. We have the responsibility to take the Sustainable Development Goals and the Agenda 2030 into every single home in Georgetown. The goals were set to or were approved in 2015. We're in 2023, halfway. We are in implementation stage. Now is the time to evaluate and review what progress we have made. But I know for sure that many of our communities, the people don't even know what the goals are. They don't know that the goals are their rights. Your right not to be hungry. Your right to food and nutrition security. What that means, that you must have nutritious meals for everyone, irrespective of your religion and your eating habits. You must have a balanced diet. It is your right. It's called the right to food. How many of us on a daily basis, as leaders, challenge ourselves and our people to realize that right? I'm calling on us to go back to the days when we did that. I am fortunate Mr. Ramjatan father was my headmaster in Manchester. And we had a school garden. We had, all of us were encouraged to have a kitchen garden. I'm calling for the restoration of the kitchen garden, restoration for the school garden. True plant is the best mechanism for achieving all the sustainable development goals. You can be educated by studying the plant. You could get healthy by eating the various plants. You can be wealthy by rearing the plants and making money and involving in agro-processing. You cannot discriminate by involving the women and the children, involvement of young people in the SDGs. You can have sustainable consumption and production in every community and the city. By doing that, at least we should speak to it. So I call it conversation, action, solution of our heritage. I call it CASH, CASH. I'm saying that so you would remember. Conversation, in other words, we got to talk. We have to educate. We have to let people know, everyone, without exception. And we have to take action, legitimate action. We have to make our homes become sustainable development homes. We have to make our cells become sustainable development cells or green cells. That's what greening means. That is what low carbon development strategy 2030 is all about. It is for all of us. It's about letting us understand by the planting that we can get our plants to sequester carbon or store carbon and give out oxygen. And mind you, as we plant, we must lobby to get carbon credits because carbon credits are tradable, can make money. So you'd make money not only by the fruits and vegetables and herbs and spices, but we must get so sophisticated that we use the information communication technology methodologies to show that we can earn in addition to just merely feeding ourselves. We used to have a fish pond in every yard. We fed ourselves with our protein source. We used to have ducks, chickens. Let's go back to that. Let us encourage small farmers. And then small farmers come together as medium farmers. You go back, micro. As a matter of fact, there's a thing called nano, even before you think about it. Nano, micro, small, medium, large. So we must get involved in from the little smallest to the largest. That's why Bonham used to say, come at Lindenford, Samson Bonham, or from the leader said, the small man can become a real man. The founder leader gave us, in a sense, reparations locally by getting the people to work together in cooperatives, to own lands, to get money from the Cooperative Republic Bank, from the Agricultural Cooperative Bank, from the Mortgage Finance Bank. Those are essence of sustainable development. We preserve the forest. Sustainable development or low carbon development strategy didn't start in 2009. It started way back with our ancestors. Our ancestors, when they formed the villages after being freed, produced everything that they needed. From the tin cup to the bicycle, to use the donkey or use the horse, or they fed themselves. They didn't have to import things from abroad. So sustainable development, which is what the leader was putting, feed out and clothe yourself. Come to, I was there. We were part of the days when we grew sorghum. You name it, we did it. Peanuts, palm oil. I was just merely out 17 as an agricultural officer in Yarakita. And we had the production and we did the processing also. Processed peanuts in Linden. We went all over Guyana. Very young people who were encouraged by the founder leader. In other words, that was true youth involvement in sustainable development. Don't let anyone fool you. Sustainable development, we champion it. And when we're writing the history, and that brings me to the point where we're supposed to write the history of our villages, get the young people involved, write about how to become prosperous. We have the power in our hands. Many of our communities are still controlled by us. But what are we doing? We're sitting back and not necessarily doing what we're supposed to do. I'm calling upon us to take control and do what we're supposed to do now. We make sure that we partner. It is not the mayor alone. It is not the regional chairman alone. It is not the NDC chair alone. It is the private sector, civil society, faith-based organizations, academia, as in the universities, the schools, and so on, and all other stakeholders working together to realize the goals that ought to be realized. Partnership, fundamental. Talk to the development partners in the country. Talk to the embassies. Talk to the diaspora. Seize the opportunity to make sure that we involve all so that we would not be discriminated against, we would not be marginalized, we would not be fooled. We still have a lot of things to do. Education is power, but it is potential power until you act upon it. I'm calling upon us to form clubs, form groups, form various action plans. Have the sustainable development action plan for your district or for your village. Go to the government. Don't wait for them to come to you and tell them what you want. What you want is not just a play field or a couple basketball or a canal dog. You want the whole sustainable development of your village. You want the sustainable development of your street, your block, and the whole community. So if you approach it like that, they would know that you're not kidding and you're in it for the long haul. I am saying to us, let us become educated. Let us work together. Let us unite. Let us help one another. Let each one teach one about the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. They're spread all around. I wrote on those woods about the various goals and everything that's supposed to be said about this development. I have at least about 400 pieces. I was limited by Lincoln them only to bring these, but I am going to have a summit and I'm going to have conferences, workshops about sustainable development. Tune in. There would be conversation, action, solution of our heritage, our link, or legacy around this country and around the world. Let us get connected. Let us do what we want to do. And another thing, before I close, all of these woods that I use to write on, they were meant to be waste. I collected them and I have thousands of pieces that worth millions of dollars. If someone were to come and ask me to sell, I wouldn't sell it for $1 million US. That's how the value I have to this. And I'm saying to all of us, let us within our communities get into the business of zero waste. Waste absolutely nothing. That's another topic for another time. And make sure you do not waste time. Do not waste your natural resources. The natural resources are for all of us. The rainforest, the wetland forests, the savannas, the peatlands, the sand, the clay, all belongs to us, and we deserve to be part of all the distribution of the resources, of the wealth, of the patrimony. So I thank you, gentlemen, for the time, and I thank Brother Leland for inviting me here.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Simpson, for calling my name correctly. My name is Leon and not Leon. I'm not Leon Song. I just want to make that right. I'm not a Rasta. Dr. Simpson is a passionate advocate for the SDG, and I know that we at IAD will support him in his work as it relates to the Sustainable Development Goals. Before we move on, we have a very special person who will be coming to the podium next to make a presentation. But before we do that, because we want you to get involved in creating sustainable communities and so on, his worship, the mayor church, he brought some coconut plants to be distributed. There are only 7, and there are 18 months coconut. I guess you guys know coconuts are very expensive now. And by the way, some time ago when the president was here, I think it was in October, we did ask the president to clean the back dam from, I think it was from Falls Blue to Wetland. They requested of me to submit some information. I would have submitted the information for 3 villages. And we are still awaiting a positive response from the government. You see, when we speak about the way developmental benefits are being allocated, sometimes they say that we are lying. But October, I think that we are in March, and we are still waiting on the government to allocate the necessary resources so that we can clean the backlands of these villages and we can get involved in agricultural activities. I trust that they are listening, and so come next week, I know that resources will be allocated to this community. So what is going to happen? Unfortunately, the mayor brought only 7 coconut plants. And so I will use my discretion to say 1 person from that table will get 1 from this table, 1 from that table, 1 from that table, 1 from that table. And you guys will decide who will collect this plant. But what I'm going to do, we will move ahead with the program. And the next speaker is a member of parliament. He's an attorney by profession. He's the leader of the Alliance for Change, and we are all familiar with him. I would like to invite Mr. Kemrat Ramjatan to the podium. So you can
Thank you very much. I was having a nice time, and I think I was enjoying myself in paradise outside of this village. But when I made a call to Ricky and he said that he was in paradise West Coast Obese, I said, well, we got to stop in for a drink before we go back. And then he told me that, he's in here for important business. That business was in relation to setting up some institute against discrimination. So because of the combination of the 2 factors, stopping in to meet a friend and comrade, and also in the inauguration of some organization, I decided I could not pass paradise. I want to say I'm glad, in view of the fact that I just was trying to get some information as to what's happening here, that indeed I am very proud that a civil society kind of organization is arranging what is called a project against discrimination. In countries like Guyana, discrimination is a scourge. It will damage our society unless, of course, we bring a halt to it. And discrimination can come in a variety of manner. You may least expect it as happening when it is happening. And to that extent, it is a very good program and project to ensure that indeed we do have something to bring a halt to it. I have lived quite, what I would say, political life, but I have seen it happening in some very large clusters now, this thing called discrimination. Political, racial, economic. And I am proud that the residents and people in and around the country have decided to utilize Paradise as a launching pad for this very important organization. As a lawyer and one who have brought certain actions in which discrimination was the crux of the matter, I feel that we will have to start bringing lots more of those, because it is going to affect and make what you call the indignities of it occurring all over the place. That set of indignities can then bring resentments. And resentments, when you feel that you're discriminated and there is no justice at the end of it all, can then bring vexation of the spirit. And when vexation of the spirit comes along, like a good boy, Rishanban, we can tell you, you don't know what can happen after that. It can be most explosive. And that is not what we want for our society. And I think we are made up of smart people. All the leaders after independence had indicated that indeed we are smart people. Especially two of the greatest leaders we had, Barnum and Jagan. And to the extent then that this generation, so many decades after, would have realized what is happening, it is fundamental that we do organizationally, in the legitimate fashion, start ensuring that we publicize and we educate that indeed institutions must be formed to the extent then of ensuring that this country becomes far more equal and not discriminatory. And to that extent then, I want to say I'm happy to be associated in this kind of organization. I am very, very proud. It is very fortuitous. It was most fortuitous that I stopped in and have to say this. I am glad also that two of my very close friends are here. Well, they got more friends than just the two, but Roysdale 4, and of course you, Brad, Narayan, who are here also giving support to this project. Whatever support at the legal level and the political level that I can give to enhance the capacities and capabilities of this organization, I will tell you, rest assured, I'll be there to support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Camerat. Of course, we do look forward for your support and your guidance here at IAAB. And so they say we save the best for the last. Our next speaker is also an attorney at law. He's a member of parliament. He is the Shadow Minister of Legal Affairs. And without further ado, I welcome to the podium Mr. Royce Ilford, the Honorable.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
If you want to talk to somebody because they come from Georgetown, Comrade Chairman, let me first do what I should do in full Guyanese form and manners, is say thank you to the organization for inviting me to address this forum, to address my Guyanese brothers and sisters on the occasion of the launch of this very significant organization. I take note of its significance and that it lies not only in its stated intentions, that is to act on discrimination against Guyanese, but also in the fact that it is established here in Guyana by Guyanese who believe that we can and should be doing better for our people and for the development of our country. It is certainly time that we stand in one accord and take this struggle against discrimination to the perpetrators, whoever they may be, whoever they might be, wherever they would be located. You would recognize that by my profession as a lawyer, it imbues me with sufficient understanding of the legality of our right to do so. This makes us fully aware, because of the times in which we live, that it poses risk to individual rights to express opinions freely and even to communicate our pain. I say this cognizant that the twists and turns in language allows for political linguistic gymnastics to distort the best of our intentions, to use our words against us, to use our words to deny our right to self-expression and even to prosecute us. So it is with pride that I say to those of you who conceptualized and formed this very important organization in an effort to push development, congratulations and well done. This comes at a time when there's an increasing number of Guyanese abroad who are intensifying the lobby for good governance back in this homeland of our dear land of Guyana. It's not unusual to hear their comments at times that the struggle for change in Guyana is more in the diaspora than here at home, which we know is as a result of the fear, yes, fear, that people feel to let their thoughts be known. In the 21st century, a people whose ancestors fought slavery and were freed from the exploitation of an indentureship system, who came together against colonial forces to improve conditions of work, to be granted independence, are not demonstrating half the willpower of our ancestors who came from Africa, India, Portugal, and China, and other parts of the world, including our first people, the Amerindian, the indigenous people. But why is this so? I would posit that it is so because we have seemingly become mentally opposed and oppressed and subjugated, which I hope is not just is just a transient state. And you, us, we, the heirs of fighters like Kofi, Accra, Hubert Nathaniel Critchlow, Kausila, Shady Jagan, Lyndon Forbes, Samson Burnham, Peter DeGar, Janet Jagan, James Phillips Gay, Jack Narang Singh, Ashton Chase, and so many others, that we will find the fortitude to stand and reignite that spirit, that indomitable spirit that led to our emancipation. We have become defeated in our fight for social and economic and political justice, and we are behaving in a similar manner as any conquered animal. We are cowering with our tail between our legs, lying on our backs with our vulnerable underbelly exposed in defeat. This is the way of the defeated, which in the animal kingdom, we could look and see the ordinary fights in the streets by dogs. We are afraid that we will lose our jobs, our tokens. We are afraid that we will not receive contracts and be able to ply our trade. We are afraid that our children will become victims of police harassment and extrajudicial killings. We are afraid of everyone with a cell phone, for the spies and seekers of political favor who will stop at nothing to get themselves aligned. These are behaviors similar to that occurred under Nazi Germany. These are behaviors that worsen if unstopped and have frightening consequences to victims of such type of behavior. So, comrades, it is encouraging to see this indigenous organization of our people formed to take action against discrimination. You are seeking to do what the Western world do, what all countries, what all people with conscience do. You're seeking to strengthen, to build capacity, and to empower for social or societal change. You're a symbol of what development means in progressive societies, and I stand ready and willing to defend your rights and legal actions ensuing from this great and monumental endeavor. I'm a proud associate, and as I do, I bring to your attention the act of discrimination that seeks to rewrite and erase the history of our country. These are serious issues that our people must understand and resist. Resist the rewriting and the erasing of our and your history in a brazen act of an assault against the people. This is nothing new coming from the political forces in Guyana, who in their passion and desperation to create inequalities and a supreme group deny and distort basic facts of our independence, our republic, nation building, self-sufficiency drives, defense, reputable foreign affairs, education, and the achievements of peace under the leadership of Guyana's first executive president, Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham. The most unscholarly academic arguments are used to slay good reasoning and to speak of history without context. And these are often unchallenged in our society that has been beaten down and broken and destroyed by lies and ignorance. The impacts of the act to discriminate against our history has become telling in the recent presentation by the Barbadian Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, who is now enjoying the limelight as perhaps the most visible Caribbean head of state on the international front. Ms. Motley, most recently known to Guyanese for her assistance during our last elections dispute, by all accounts is a brilliant woman and a shrewd politician. I credit the goodly lady as a senior counselor, or King's Counsel, as they call it in Barbados, to understand the importance not only of history, but in the delivery of truth in its entirety. I credit Ms. Motley as a Caribbean leader of substance, old enough to recognize and know of the history of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, who probably died when she was a young adult, maybe in college, and even if not so, as a learned counselor and as a Caribbean leader. She somehow missed the name of Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham and the role played by Guyana, maybe by choice, by a need to avoid controversy or uncertainty, given the distortions led by those who propagate acts of distortion of our history. These are the facts that are being denied in our history. I credit the following achievement of Burnham from a compilation done by Mr. Vincent Alexander. Burnham's contribution to the debate in the British Guiana legislature in 1958 led to the banning of exports to South Africa. Burnham's arrest in London in 1960 for protesting against the barbarous apartheid policies of South Africa. Burnham's government initial annual financial contribution of $50,000 US to aid African freedom fighters, and the subsequent sum of $100,000 US that was granted to the African National Congress on the occasion of the Forum of the Liberation of South Africa, hosted in Guyana in 1981. The sum was increased to $250,000 United States dollars. Guyana's support and inauguration of African Solidarity Week, the conduct of a national signature campaign for the release of the great Nelson Mandela, training opportunities and scholarships offered to South Africans, the naming of a major roadway in Guyana in honor of Nelson Mandela, the granting of diplomatic passports to South African liberation fighters, the refueling in Guyana of Cuban aircrafts, which were airlifting troops and equipment to combat the South Africans who were seeking to conquer Angola, Guyana's chairmanship of the Commonwealth Sanctions Committee, Guyana's co-sponsorship of 5 draft UN resolutions on apartheid at the 27th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Guyana's ban of South African sportsmen, Caribbean sportsmen, who toured South Africa, and the boycott of the Montreal Olympic Games, among many other acts of solidarity. As a young boy growing up, I always wondered why this was happening. Why one group was painted as bad and another good? Where were the indisputable facts to validate these statements? Where were they who know better, who were unafraid to put their scholarship to the test in countering the misrepresentations accompanied with loud noise, the bullying that we witnessed if an alternative view was raised? I've grown to understand and live the experience myself. Seeing others around me silent and preferring to live a life without political conflict. I see the fear even now among many with whom I interact, but I also see, my friends, a silent majority with a passion for change and in need of leadership at every level of our society. This evening, as I speak, I find it hard sometimes to envisage that what we have become and how such wanton acts of discrimination can continue for so long unchallenged, continuously perpetuated in the social sphere and in our courts of law. This association, this institute, is a most welcome development. I wish to address in brief comments made at a rally at Buxton on March 9th and the responses that caused me to reflect on certain experiences. Years ago, I recall the ugly remarks made about the 1763 monument and how hurtful some felt. Now today we have other ugly remarks made. Surely we can rise. History records some groups from various lands arrived to this new land as having escaping from jail sentences, from poverty and discrimination. Some were sold as slaves. These persons had varied status in their homelands, which history has recorded. Whereas some were lowly from all lands, some were other characteristics which caused them to be considered lowly. Some were leaders in their lands. Irrespective of history, our ancestors, all of our ancestors, all arrived here. And what is important is that they rise and we rise above their circumstances to make this beautiful country our home. We, the descendants of both paid and unpaid labor, are no less proud of them as they would be of us. Let us rise, Guyana. Let us rise. We cannot succeed if we only seek to destroy each other. It does not mean that we go silent. It means that we engage with some basic understanding of the rules of engagement. We will have to set them because they are non-existent right now in this society. And even in instances where they are not upheld or not applied. And they are many times deliberately thwarted in government offices and high decision-making forum across the length and breadth of Guyana. Example, never before has Parliament witnessed behavior to that of a minister of government screaming rape, 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 rape in Parliament. Quite recently, I had cause to accuse the government of declaring war on my party, the People's National Congress, and its supporters. They have demonized the opposition, demonized all who stood in support of them, and demonized African Guyana as a whole. Lyndon B. Johnson, the President of the United States of America, in 1964, declared a war on poverty. Through his declaration, and by virtue of this declaration, America at that time started and laid the foundation for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program called SNAP, formerly known as food stamps. Medicare and Medicaid were signed into law in 1965. Social Security expanded amongst other actions to bring alleviation to those who were the greatest victims of rising poverty. The war on poverty continues to date, as does other wars to make life better for our citizens and citizens across the world, particularly the marginalized. Today, I recognize that the declaration of war by the PPP, and I must say that we must respond in the manner of Lyndon B. Johnson. Even though we don't hold the reins of power or the state to enact change, we must bring pressure to bear on those declaring war on discrimination